Well, hello, this is Dragonheart on Calon FM and podcasts. But anywhere you get your podcast, I am joined by Mark Griffiths and Bill Long. How are you guys?
Yeah, we're good, Chay. Well, I am sorry, Bill. I didn't mean to speak on your behalf.
Yeah, no, I'm all right as well.
Well, we've got a lot to talk about today. We've got in part one of an interview with Craig Skinner. We have the Folkestone game to look back at, and we also have the Yeovil game to talk about and what our thoughts are on that. So let's get to it. This is Dragonheart.
I'm Harry Lennon, and this is Dragonheart.
Well, another successful tie against a side lower than us in the English pyramid, let's say. But we were professional. We did a good job. And yeah, a cracking result, wasn't it, Bill?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the kind of tie that a couple of years ago we may have not struggled. We possibly could have won, but it's the kind of tie that you'd have seen a few of the teams of the last couple of seasons may have only ground out a 2-0 with some reserves. So we played a full strength team and battered them, really. So can't complain.
Yeah, and to be fair, it took us some time to get our first goal. You know, first 30 minutes were quite cagey, wasn't it, Mark? And we were the better side, but I think Folkestone gives a good game.
I thought they were terrific, Folkestone. Yeah, exactly. And like Bill said, the sort of side that in the past could easily have pulled off an upset. We've lost to worse teams than that at home in the past. They were, looking at them beforehand, it was clear. I mean, they're doing very well in their league, and it was clear that they're a really good attacking team and not a great defensive team. And it was sensible, but good to see that they basically decided they were playing their normal game and they'd come at us. And I really enjoyed the way that they did that. It opened the game up. It was really entertaining. Okay. It was ultimately their downfall because they did get a bit tired, I think, and we did take control of it. And they did leave themselves very open, and we could have scored a lot more. But I said at the start of the Final Whistle podcast, I had mixed feelings in a way at the end of the game, because obviously you want to see Wrexham score. I'm biased. Obviously I want to see Jordan Ponticelli get his hat-trick. But I was also feeling that I didn't really want to, I know it sounds soft this, but I didn't really want to Folkestone to let any more in because they didn't deserve it. You know, they didn't deserve a battering, even if they did miss a lot of easy chances.
Well, you've got to remember these guys aren't professional footballers, are they? They're semi-professional. They do it along. It's not their full-time job. It's something they do in the evenings when they're not working. And I think it's nice to see us compete against teams of this man, and it just shows that the fitness side of football, the higher up the pyramid you go, is very important, isn't it, Bill?
Yeah, I think we've seen towards the back end of last year that we recruited more of the medical staff, and we'll be doing a lot more strength and conditioning, and just by virtue of being full time, you can train full time, and you're able to increase your fitness levels. And when you add the extra quality on top, it's difficult to see a way for some lower teams to fit in, isn't it? It's really, you see it in the FA Cup with the higher up teams, that a team in the Premier League that has a squad of 25 that are all training and eating and they've completely got all that recovery to the absolute highest standard, can still compete with League One teams that are their full strength side. So it's that similar sort of gap for us, isn't it? I think the lower you go down the leagues, the bigger that gap sort of gets as well.
I agree. But we also didn't play a weak side, did we?
Yeah, exactly. And as we've recruited from a couple of divisions higher up, following on from what Bill said, we've brought in players of natural fitness. I mean, James Jones is a machine. He just, although, in terms of how it's gone for him, it's been a bit up and down in performances, but in terms of his stamina, I mean, the bloke just doesn't stop running. He looks as fresh at added time as he does at the start of the game. And that sort of thing shows in a game like that. We did pick a strong team. I think it was inevitable we did, with no games in the midweeks before or after. And ultimately, we had a bit too much for them. Kwame Thomas was excellent again. Ponticelli missed some quite straightforward chances, even though he nearly got a hat-trick. He should have got a hat-trick in a way, but he played very well as ever. He's tireless. Again, he's another one, isn't he? He's just non-stop. constant. The defenders don't get a moment's rest because Ponticelli's just on them all the time. Thomas was bullying the centre backs. Yeah, it was a harder ride as it went along for Folkestone.
Yeah, and the most important part is we got another really convincing win. It wasn't, it was competitive. Don't get me wrong, like the Gloucester game, that was competitive, but we really, really did show our class in the end, and the fact that we do have a really strong, in-depth squad this season. It's really positive to see, isn't it, Bill?
Yeah, I think it's showing that when generally, not every time, but when we play lower level teams, we do seem to give them a little bit of a stuffing. So that's positive. There's been years previously when I'm trying to think of the second year we were in the conference, we beat Luton 3-1 or 3-0, something like that, and then ended up losing to every other side that was 14th downwards. So I'd rather us beat these sort of teams because there's generally more of them than there are the higher quality, and you're more likely to, I know we were in a cup this time, but we're more likely to get points. It's a bit of a shame looking at that draw and seeing some of those teams that we could have drawn, and we end up with Boreham Wood. Because I feel like if we'd have played some of those National League North teams, it just suits our style. We sit back, we let them attack, get them on the counter, but we've got the quality to sort of punish teams, and it would have been as much as I think most Wrexham fans would have preferred to have an early exit from this tournament. Once you get to this sort of stage, you may as well go for it, really, didn't you? And if we'd have had an easy tie, it would have been quite tasty to see us sort of getting that little bit closer.
But, we've got to back ourselves to be the best team in our division, which makes us the best team in our competition. And at home, apart from that Yeovil game, we're unbeaten at home and generally looks unconvincing. So we just got to go there and, it's a home draw. I think that's a chance to get rid of one of the contenders rather than have them waiting for us next round.
Sorry, do you two both see us putting a full strength side out against Boreham Wood then, or does it depend on how the fixtures land, or where do we go with it?
That's a good question. That my gut feeling is once you get this far, we're probably taking it seriously. We're now, I mean, I admit it'll start to cut into our fixtures, which is not good, but we're in the last 16 now, so we are now 5 games from winning it, 4 games from Wembley. So you get to this point, I think you're probably thinking, let's go for it. As things stand, obviously things could change. We don't have a midweek game either side of that match either, which I think's relevant.
I personally think that we're going to, looking at what Parkinson's picked in the past, even if you look at the Gloucester game, we still picked a reasonably strong side. The Folkestone game, we picked a really strong side, which I think makes sense because you need to keep up your match fitness. I think Parkinson's going to go out to win it, and I think maybe you don't play Mullin or you don't play a couple of others and you try a little bit of rotation. Maybe you play Kwame Thomas for a full 90 and things like that. Yeah, I think we'll put out a really strong side, and I think we're going to look to win this trophy.
Have we got to the point where Kwame should be starting league games, do you think?
It's interesting, isn't it? I think you maybe give him a good 20 minutes in the next game, possibly. What do you think, Chay?
Yeah, well, I think it's a case of who do you drop? Because I think Ponticelli's been fantastic this season. I feel a bit. I think if I was John Ponticelli and I got dropped for Kwame Thomas, even though I think he probably deserved a start at some point, I'd feel hard done by because I don't think he's done much wrong. And the Folkestone game, he was probably one of the better players, if not the best player on the pitch.
Last 2 games, those 2 cup games, Kwame's lasted 70 minutes, then 79. So he's pretty much getting a 90 in now, isn't he? Well, like you say, Ponticelli just scored 2 goals. So
yeah,
nice problem to have.
Yeah, and it looks like we may be looking for strikers in the transfer window as well. So it who knows? But I think Kwame Thomas isn't far off starting. And again, he's a real good asset and he's got real good quality for this level. So I wouldn't be opposed to him starting the league game at all.
It's funny as well, going back to what you said before about whether we pick a strong team against Boreham Wood. Well, if you bring in 3 very good players, as we're planning to at the end of the window, by the time we play Boreham Woods, 3 of our first team players won't be first team players, will they? They'll have lost their places. Yeah. So we'll have a bit more strength and depth, won't we?
Good point.
Well, hopefully. Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, let's hope it happens.
Yeah, and we're playing a really good side in Boreham Wood. Maybe they'll have to rotate too. Who knows? The league's looking very tasty so far this season. So, yeah, is there anything more you'd like to add, Mark, on that? Oh, yeah.
Sorry, cutting in, but just speaking of Boreham Wood, they've got they progressed in the FA Cup, haven't they? So they might be looking to put a weak side out against us if they've got a bit of a fixture pile up, possibly could go in our favour.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
and
hopefully
they'll have to look at a away game against us as being a tough one. So might be their prioritised league in the FA Cup, perhaps. It's a fair point. That absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would just say the other little thing to come out of it was just the impressive nature of our defenders. I mean, obviously we won 5-1, but Folkestone weren't scared, and like I say, they scored a lot of goals this season. They had a very physical attack, and they did try to ask questions of us. And so, although we won the game comfortably, the defence looked very impressive. You know, Tozer was just like impassive in the middle. He's just strong and reliable. Hayden, who we made man of the match, was just a beast. It just, so physically imposing. He was terrific. And then on the other side, Cleworth, well, I mean, Cleworth's making I rate Hattie Lennon massively, and he is our first choice left-sided centre-back, don't get me wrong. Cleworth's making a case for starting in the league, though. He's playing so well, and he gives us something interesting as well when we have the ball, in that, all right, Hayden and Tozer are comfortable with going forwards. I admit Tozer's maybe a little bit more reliable on the ball than Hayden, but Hayden's capable of driving forwards, capable of breaking the lines, capable of playing progressive passes, traditional wide centre-back stuff in a back three. But Cleworth, actually, he can do that because he can play in midfield. He's good passer of the ball for a centre-back, but he's also able to do that Sheffield United overlapping centre-back thing, which he did at will last Saturday. So he'd go, look at the build-up for Hosanna's goal. Hey, Hosanna and Jordan Davis with this fantastic sort of 30-second triangle on the left-hand side. How many passes they exchanged? But Cleworth is actually willing not just to bring the ball into midfield like Hayden and Tozer will. He's willing to go beyond the attacking players. He's willing to overlap into the box, and he pulls it back in the end for Hosanna, and he's doing that a few times, and against Gloucester. It's an interesting, different element of which struggling to break a team down, that you've got a centre-back who's able to actually operate as a winger.
Yeah, it is brilliant. I've sung Max Cleworth's praises all season. Now we've seen him in 2 different positions in 2 different FA Trophy ties. Where do you think he's most effective, holding midfield or left-sided centre-back?
I'm going to say centre-back. I think that's his natural position, but I wouldn't be worried if we were using him in midfield in the league games. I think he's developing to the point where he would be. I wouldn't be nervous about him, and I think if this was last season's squad, I think Dean Keats and he had Cleworth as he is now would have been picking him. I think he'd have had a good case to be a first teamer. He's developing fantastically well, I think.
I think the thing I like about Max Cleworth the most is he didn't seem fazed by it all. He's played big games like that Notts County home game, where I think a lot of players of his age and, him being a local lad may have crumbled as well. So I think he is one excellent prospect, isn't he? And I'm so glad we didn't loan him out early on in the season, because at the start of the season, because he has been an amazing asset so far.
This is the wisest thing.
To remind you that.
So yeah.
He's like to remind you that, Mark, doesn't he?
Yeah. I was going to say it's the wisest thing that's been said on Dragonheart this season. And Chay said, when I said maybe we should loan him to someone in our league, and Chay said, well, why don't we just keep him and play him then? And well, funnily enough, he was proven right, wasn't he?
But to be fair, I'd have probably before the start of the season, I'd have probably agreed with you, Mark. But hats off to Chay, he's called that one brilliantly. I think we are starting to look like using him, and he's looking like a really good option for us.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I have been his biggest fan this season. It just seems like sometimes it's the Max Clareworth Appreciation Podcast rather than Dragonheart now.
Well, he's not put a foot wrong this season, has he? So to be fair, long may it continue.
Yeah, certainly. And yeah, that was a great chat. Folkestone victor, 5-1. Nice win. We're into the next round. Happy days. So after this, we have an interview with 90s hero Craig Skinner.
Your town, your station, your voice. This is Calon FM.
Well, Craig, firstly, thank you so much for joining us. A real pleasure to speak to you. You were always a player that intrigued me. I've got to be honest. I always enjoyed watching you play. And I've just mentioned before we came on air that I remember seeing you play for Plymouth at Shrewsbury, and you caught my eye. And I believe it was your ability at Plymouth to catch people's eye that sort of helped to set up the move to Wrexham.
Yeah, I think it, thinking back to, when I actually signed for Wrexham. Yeah, so I think it was the sort of 94, 95 season, well, the season before I signed, Mark. And yeah, I do remember distinctly a game against Wrexham down at Home Park when I was playing for Plymouth. And I actually think Mickey Quinn was actually on loan for Plymouth at the time, because I remember him bagging a couple and might have got an hat-trick, I'm not too sure. We won the game 4-0, or it might have been 4-1. But I just had a really good game. I think I got a couple of assists and scored. And, when I met sort of Brian, in the following summer, when we were talking about signing for Wrexham, then, he did remember that game kind of thing. So when you mentioned the game against Shrewsbury, strangely enough, that I probably had my best season for Plymouth the year we actually got relegated that year. So we'd been in the playoffs the year before, got relegated in my final year there. But I probably had my best season there, because I sort of had various interruptions during sort of my time there, mainly with injury. So yeah, that I'm sure that played a part, in sort of, I think Brian had known me from when I was a kid at Blackburn as well. So yeah, that definitely influenced things.
And I was always wondered, influencing from your point of view, we got into Europe. Did the thought maybe of getting to play in Europe, because it's a strange thing that Wrexham were allowed in Europe then. Did that sort of entice you at all? Or
I remember Brian mentioning it during the meetings that we had that summer, because I sort of remember him, asking if I had any sort of Welsh blood, really, any ancestry, grandparents, so that I'd qualify as a Welsh player, but I hadn't. And but yeah, if I remember rightly, I don't think too many of the sort of foreigners could play. Could they at the time? Like, I think, was it the 3 foreigner rule, or I can't remember really, because the game, I remember it was the game against, actually.
Petrolul Ploiest, Romanians.
That's right, yeah. Rather you than me, I think, that one. But so yeah, it was mentioned, and I do remember the game, definitely the home game anyway. But yeah, I'm not too sure. Did we go out early on with that one?
Yeah. We considering the restrictions, we did well. We drew 0-0 home to them, and they're the Romanian Cup winners, aren't they? And then we lost 1-0 over there, so we went out 1-0 aggregate. But the cruel thing is that it didn't last long. But for a bit, UEFA said the 4 British countries are separate countries, and that was why we couldn't pick a full strength team. It happened to us twice in Europe, and all of a sudden, English players started finding Welsh granddads. Managing to get in the team, because there were a couple of lads who played both matches against Ploiest, never played for us again. Did well, actually, to be fair to them, but it's cruel that really at the time. Oh, sorry.
Mm-hmm. It's just a pity that it's fallen like that, isn't it? When the regulations have worked against us, but yeah, like you say, it seems we did okay under the circumstances, but yeah, it was probably short and sweet, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's cruel that any other time you probably would have been playing in Europe, and we probably would have gone through as well, because we had a decent side there, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. It was thinking back, it's a really good squad. Obviously I've followed the sort of trials and tribulations from afar. Like, I'm sort of based in Manchester, as I was when I was playing for Wrexham, and you look back at at that time, and as a bit of an outsider looking in, because I don't follow the club like you do, obviously, but it's still close to my heart. So I'm always looking out for what's going on there. And yeah, I think that squad we had during that sort of mid to late 90s, I think was really good. I was thinking today, before obviously sort of coming on, going through the players, and we had a really, really good squad, I felt like, and a good team, some really good players, and we were pushing to, I always remember my time there pushing to get out of League One, do you know what I mean, and got to go into the Championship. We just didn't really take that last step, really. I think there were a couple of last days of the season where I think we got in the playoffs, like, if I remember rightly. When you compare that to where we are now, like, just obviously just toiling and trying to get out of the National League. So yeah, really good squad.
And then, you came back at the same time as Peter Ward came in. Kevin Russell came back at the same time. It's an influx of quality there. You can see we're building up, and that was sort of the starting point in a way, from us being a decent mid-table side who could score goals to being a more rounded side that went higher up, trying to push it higher up in the league, really.
Yeah, definitely. I remember that day, actually, because I used to travel in with Wardy. I mean, I didn't sort of first day of pre-season, but I used to travel in with Wardy and Brian Carey, because Wardy was sort of south side Manchester. He used to come over to us, and Brian was sort of local to me. But yeah, I remember tipping up and then seeing Rooster, because I remember I knew of Rooster, but didn't sort of know him. I wasn't aware he'd been at the club before, like, I obviously had as a kid, but he played against Blackburn for Leicester, and I remember a game where I think Bobby Mims come flying out of the it was Blackburn's keeper at the time. He was about 20 yards outside his box and smashed it against Rooster. And Roosters ran it in from about 40, 50 yards out in front of the Leicester fans. And he just, because he's a distinctive character, it always stuck with me. Like, they're all shouting Rooster. And like, I remember that sort of moment, really. So when I met him, just like we've known each other for years, really. He's a great lad. As were the other boys, really. Like, it was quite a harmonious squad, to be honest, like, looking back.
I'm old enough to remember Kevin Russell's first spell with us. He had hair. It was terrifying.
I've seen some of the pictures. Yeah, he's better without it, wasn't he?
I think we sort of altered his career in a way, because he had 2 years with us. At the start of his career, he scored 20 goals at least in both. He was the fastest striker with the ball I'd ever seen. He was unbelievably quick. But we got in the playoffs in his last season, and he got a muscle injury, and we got him to play through it. And I think it affected his pace a little bit, and it was good that he's so intelligent that he's adapted himself and became a different type of player, because I think maybe I wonder, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I wondered whether we had a bit of an effect by pushing him when he wasn't fully fit, because he was so important to us. Maybe we had a long-term effect on his pace, because he seemed to lose the edge of it quite early on, but such a clever player.
Yeah, you'll know that better than me, because I only saw him when he came second time, really, and he was still sharp, Rooster, really, really sort of sharp. But yeah, I know what you mean. But he did tell me about that time, like, I wasn't aware, that he'd sort of been there for, a first spell until a little bit after, I got to know him a little bit better. And yeah, he did say how much he sort of enjoyed it, benefited him, like, did he move from, was it Portsmouth at the
yes,
time?
That's right, yeah.
So he went up from Portsmouth, yeah. So, but he was one of them lads that had sort of been around a little bit. He was only, he had a few years on me. He was a bit older than me, but he'd had a few clubs behind him as well, and some really good experience. But yeah, really clever player, really good player as well, and just loads of. I had a lot of respect from the other lads. Like, he was a bit of a joker in the pack. Like, he's really sort of dry, funny. He was a great guy to be around. Like, there was never a dull moment with him at all. Like, ever. But football wise, he knew his onions. I had loads of respect from the boys.
I think I'm right in saying I think he had tonsillitis when he first came to the club. That must be frustrating. You come in for your first pre-season, you're getting disrupted like that. It must be good that the squad, you can see the players around you were so good, to make sure that you still feel part of it, if you like.
Yeah, I do remember that. And my fitness, I didn't really feel fit at the club because it did set me back a little bit, really. And when you sort of join it, I remember Lugger saying to me, Carl Connolly, about towards the end of it was towards the end of pre-season and maybe at the start of the season, and he said to me, you don't. He remembered that game, the one I was talking about. He said, Jesus, he said, you were flying then, he said, and I said, yeah, I just don't seem to be able to get as fit as I feel, do you know what I mean? I've never, I didn't shake it off, in the early sort of stages, didn't do the pre-season. So that's, never a great sign. So you're always playing a little bit of catch up. So it did sort of, knock me back a little bit, and it wasn't until, I got a good run of games, probably start towards, October, November time. I remember we played Rotherham. It would be around about October, November, the first year I signed, and we won 7-0. We battered them, and I scored my first goal. Had a good game. Everything went our way that day. Everyone played really well, and that was the game where I thought, I feel fit and I feel at home. I'm doing okay here. Like I'm starting to, to do well. So that was it was a setback, but like you say, there's nothing you can do. You just got to sort of work hard and play through it, really, and you'll get to where you get to.
We and it was around. I just got the fixtures up here, looking at them. It was around that time we win the penalty shootout next game against Hull in the cup and go through past Chesterfield. I don't like talking about Chesterfield in the FA Cup.
Oh no, it was a horrible day, that, wasn't it?
Yeah. But this is the season before, and we're getting a sort of solid look about us where we're really hard to beat, and we're just starting to grind our way up, if you like, to near the top of the table. And you were chipping in with some handy goals. You tended to score important goals, it seems to me.
Yeah, I think I scored a few, probably not as much as I would have liked really, but I was just having a think back, really. I remember probably the best goal I ever scored in my career was away at Burnley. I don't know whether it was my first season or my second season. But again, I think we were getting beat. We ended up drawing the game. We came back from 1-0 down to 2-1.
Yeah.
And then I think we conceded again, and it made it 2-2. But I remember that because it was always good going to Burnley. There was a big crowd at Turf Moor. I remember our following that day was fantastic. Like, I had loads of friends and family there, and they were saying, wow, what a set of supporters, like the away fans. Yeah. The only problem was my goal was at the wrong end, so I couldn't really celebrate it properly. It was in front of the Burnley fans. But that goal's always stuck with me. I remember scoring.
That was a Saturday after the 7-0 against Rotherham. I just found it.
Oh, was it? Right.
Right. So
that makes sense. Just getting a bit of sort of confidence going, and the team playing well.
2-2, but all the goals came in the 16-minute spell. You scored first, 50th minute.
Right.
And Nogan scored for them, and Joyce, and then Wardy scored a minute later. So there was 2-1 to them, 65th minute, and then Peter Ward scored a minute after.
Yeah, I remember Joyce scoring because I played with him at Plymouth. I do remember that. I think it was an header. But yeah, in fact, I lived with him the first year I was there. So he probably reminded me about that one, really.
Well, what was that goal like that you scored? I mean,
I do remember. I'd love to see the footage of it because every year I tell it to people, it seems to get better and better. So as long as it's not on video, I'll make it even better now. But I picked the ball up maybe in sort of it was round about the halfway line. If that the way I remember it is in our own half, and I've sort of turned inside with my back to. I've sort of accelerated away from a couple of players. I'm sort of faced up with the left back. I've ended up megging him, sort of getting towards the corner of the box, and I've just drilled it sort of, a couple of feet off the ground all the way on an angle like that. I think that their keeper is a really good keeper at the time. There was a guy called Marlon Beresford who was an excellent keeper.
Yeah,
and it just went in. So it was like a little bit of a solo effort with a great finish, really. So it's definitely the best goal I scored in my career, really. I didn't score loads and loads, but there's a couple of decent ones in there. That one's always stuck with me, really. And I remember turning around, like I remember looking at the fans, like thinking, wow, I wish I was up there now, like,
yeah, I'll bet.
You're on the wrong end.
I think this is both good news and bad news, because I've just had a quick look, because as well as doing the commentaries and stuff, I've also been trying to collect as much video as possible. And I haven't got any footage of that. Maybe somebody else will, but I've been stealing off people shamelessly. So
I never I know a lot of players at the time, because it just wasn't as readily available as it is now. It was more difficult to do, wasn't it? And I just never bothered keeping any sort of clippings, any goals, assists, anything like that. I think Ward, I'm sure at the time that there were like club videos that gave you highlights and stuff, because I think Wardy used to sort of collect them. And I always said to him afterwards, I said, Wardy, give us them videos. I'll sort of do a copy and that. And he just never got round to it, really. But yeah, as long as there's no video, I can keep sort of saying it's better than it was. Like,
It might have been even better than you remember. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm just having a look around, because I've got some of those old videos here knocking around on one of these shelves. So I know exactly what you mean. And the really annoying thing, like I say, unless you want no one to see it, is that Burnley are one of the good clubs where you can find videos going back to like the mid-80s with them usually. Other clubs just haven't filmed them.
One thing I do remember, because I saw it on the news sort of later. I used to have them on the sort of early evening news, local sort of news, didn't they, I think? And I remember seeing it, and I think Burnley were having the stand built, so the angle wasn't fantastic. Do you know what I mean? So in my head, I have seen it. I have definitely seen it, because I remember the stand was being built and the angle of the video wasn't actually brilliant. But we'll see. Hopefully it'll turn up, because I told my lad about it for years. Like, so it'd be great to show it him.
Right.
Yeah.
When we're finished, that's my job. I'm going to have a good search. But whether we make it public or not depends on after you've seen it. If you're happy with it.
Yeah. Well, it hit the back of the net, so I'm happy with it. Like, as long as I've not been stretching it too much.
Well, I mean, there's other games that you scored, and I remember you scoring at one of my favourite ever games. We went to Luton and beat them 5-2. They had Andy Dibble in goal before he came to us. He scored, and it was just incredible, because Luton usually battered us, and we went to Luton and wow, 5 goals.
I think it was a penalty actually, which. I don't know why I was on penalties, really, because I've taken the odd penalty in my career. I took a couple for Plymouth, but didn't Carl normally take all the penalties? Carl Connolly.
Yeah.
Carl was playing in that game as well, so he got an hat-trick, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. So actually, I might find out what was the order of the scoring. I wonder if
I don't know. I'm not, there's obviously a reason behind it, but well, I scored it anyway, so that's I think I put it keeper's right. I think I went.
No, we only had 1 goal at the time. So Dave Brammer scored first, then Carl scored, and then they got it back to 2-2.
Right.
And you scored that penalty. Carl scored his second goal a minute later, and then he got his hat-trick.
So the penalty made it 3-2 then.
So you
penalty made it 3-2, right? Yeah. I mean, one of them games, really, wasn't it? I can't remember too much detail about the game, but I remember, we played really well. I do remember Carl sort of getting an hat-trick, and I remember the goal. So you don't sort of score 5 away from home too often, do you, really? So it's a good win, that one. Well, but what year was that?
That would be September 97.
Right.
And I've just found a possible explanation as well. I'm just looking. 2 weeks earlier, we played at Sheffield United in the League Cup. And that's a game that really sticks in my head. It was the second leg. The first leg, Carl had scored a penalty. The second leg, I never bet on things, but I was in the stand, because I was commentating. I was in the main stand. And there was a bookies stall in the concourse, and it had odds on the first scorer. And obviously, it's just for Sheffield United fans, isn't it? And Carl's odds for being first scorer was something stupid. Yeah, like 20-1 or something. And I was thinking, do they know our team at all? I mean, he scores goals, he takes penalties. So I put, like, by my standards, something massive, like £3 on him to score the first goal.
Yeah.
And when it was 0-0, we got a penalty. And I thought, well, here we are. He doesn't miss penalties. We're laughing. And of course, he walked up and he tried to do a Panenka, and the keeper didn't move. He just stood there and waited for the ball to arrive. Maybe that's why he was off penalties.
Sounds like it. Was that the one? Was it Bramall Lane or the racecourse?
That one, when he missed the penalty, that was Bramall Lane. It was 2 legs.
Right. Because I remember that league. Was it League Cup game?
Yeah.
I remember that. Did Dean Spink score? Because I think I set that goal up as well. Yeah. Dean scored, didn't he? Yeah. Well, funnily enough, I don't know whether I should say this, but I was on when I was on penalties down at Plymouth. Where they come out for it, but it was one of them back in the day. Like my brother came down. Like I think my brother came down. There might have been a couple of mates as well. So I said, like, I'm on penalties, like, you know what I mean? So load it up for the weekend, kind of thing. And anyway, lo and behold, we get a penalty, don't we? Like we're playing Wickham. Yeah. So I can't let anyone down with this. Like, you start thinking about it, the lads putting some money on rather than sort of the penalty in the game, like, But anyway, again, look, luckily I scored it and that. But that one came in, yeah. But yours obviously didn't. But so yeah.
You see, Wickham, I've got nothing to attach to this, so I'm sorry to throw it out in the middle of nowhere. Something that always stuck in my head was you scoring, one of our earliest ever goals, actually. He scored within a minute against Wickham. And I remember sitting there thinking, we're going to batter these. And it was 1-0. And I've never seen a team cling on for 90 minutes like that.
I can't remember I remember the goal because, again, I was really... Derrin sort of whipped in across. It was about 30 seconds that it was literally the first move. He's whipped it in, and I've just volleyed it, from about 12 yards out, and it's just absolutely, when you catch a ball so cleanly, you can hardly hit, you hardly feel it sort of touch your foot, like, and it was one of them. It was just and it rocketed right in the top corner.
Obviously, you also were at the club in the FA Cup run to the quarterfinals, but I think injuries and different things meant that you didn't get to play in a lot of those fancy games. You played in the crazy Colwyn Bay game when we could have gone out in the first round, and Mark Cartwright kept us in it. And the Scunthorpe game when we got a fluky equaliser, Steve Morris chasing it in when their keeper hit the ball into the ground, and we won with a late Steve Watkin penalty. So that run, I mean, everyone talks about the wonderful victories, but we easily could have been knocked out early on in that run.
Now you mentioned the sort of Colwyn Bay, that does sort of ring a bell, really. Was that at the racecourse?
Yeah, they knocked it over, and then they drew the racecourse, and Mark Cartwright played an absolute blinder.
Yeah.
We played the racecourse and we won that 2-0.
Yeah, I do remember that. But I mean, the cup run was amazing, but it was a bit bittersweet for me because I was injured. We had, and you mentioned the Scunthorpe game in that cup run, and it was the Scunthorpe game that I got injured in, and it was the most bizarre thing. It was about sort of 50 minutes. There was a goal kick, and as a sort of winger, sort of wide player, I was just getting ready to challenge for the ball. It was up in the air, and as I've gone to jump off the ground to try and win the header, I've jumped up, whatever's happened, and I've landed, and I've looked at my hand, and my hand has just puffed out, ridiculous, and it was so bizarre, and it just started, it was killing me, absolutely sort of killing me. My hand, in the sort of my middle of the sort of hand there. So I sort of got the physio on and sort of had a look at thinking, well, what is it like? Something crazy had happened, and the only thing I can think of looking back was that the fullback's gone like that to sort of jump, and he smashed my sort of hand. Anyway, sort of I played on for about 20 minutes. Like I think, did it go to extra time that game?
Yeah.
I played until full time, but I couldn't. I was struggling to run. I couldn't touch anyone. It was just getting worse. It was red. I said, I'm going to have to cut. It was just unbearable. So anyway, as I say, what happened in the game, we got through in the end. But I basically, broke my hand. But that middle sort of bone there, it was displaced. So I had an operation to put it right. I said I couldn't play. I had plaster. Did the X-rays. It didn't go well. I had to have another operation a few weeks later, where they sort of basically screwed it all together because it had been broken but also displaced. So from something so innocuous, I was out for. It must have been. I had to have the thing on. Sometimes they let you play with it. They wouldn't let me play with it because of how bad a break it was, and that was me. So I was watching football for the next sort of few months, which was brilliant because obviously the cup run was fantastic. But as a player, you just want to be out there, and I wasn't. So, but again, such a bizarre injury that just happened out of absolutely nothing. Next thing, I've got a broken hand that, has kept me out for months, really. So, yeah, but, the cup run was obviously amazing, wasn't it? Just in terms of that time. But as I say, a little bit sort of bittersweet for myself, really, just in terms of my contribution to it.
I mean, I assume you must have been at that Chesterfield game. The reason I say that, the next season, I noticed that in the programme, it did a sort of question and answer thing with you. And it says, well, I can't find where it was now, worst moment in football, losing to Chesterfield. So that must be a hell of a difficult game to watch. When you feel you must, a creative player like you must have surely felt, God, I'd love to be out there. I could make a difference in this sort of game.
Yeah, it was a horrible game, wasn't it? I really sort of, I just remember it being a horrible day, really. Obviously I wasn't fit, so I wasn't involved at all, but obviously there. And yeah, it's just, a really sort of poor game. You think to yourself, God, as a League One, getting through to the quarterfinals of the FA Cup and having chances, it's like I said, if we'd have got through that game and did they play Middlesbrough? There's nothing to stop us beating Chesterfield and beating Middlesbrough. It's not beyond the realms of possibility for us to be in an FA Cup final and for the game to be so poor. For me, personally, for me not to be playing was horrible. And then just to be there, you can't affect anything. The scenes after the game, everyone was just devastated. After what had happened, really sort of devastated. It was a real sort of low moment. But that's football, isn't it? It's that's just the nature of the industry that we're in, really. So yeah, but I do remember that. I just remember being in the changing room afterwards, and it was just a horrible place to be, So same for the fans as well, wasn't it? Really,
I remember watching it and just thinking it felt like your classic sort of clash of styles. Two teams trying to impose their style on the game. They're just pounding it onto Kevin Davis's head. We're trying to get it on the floor, and we couldn't really get it on the floor. And it was played on their terms more, and they just wanted to break it up, have lots of restarts, pump it long, and make it a fight, didn't they? And they succeeded in doing that.
So it's like you say, some great memories from that cup run, But as I say, ultimately you're left with thinking it was a little bit of a what if, wasn't it? Like, just in terms of, just got taking that next step and having that sort of look on the day, really, to get through that round, really. So yeah, it was disappointing. Yeah. I think we beat them there in the league as well. Not before that or after that.
We drew there in the league, but dominated them, and we beat them at home. Yeah. So
was it at home? Yeah.
We beat them at home comfortably, and then in the away game we drew 0-0. It wasn't long before that, and we were well on top of it. So we played well in both matches against them, and then it comes to the.
I remember. I'm sure I remember scoring at Chesterfield in one of the games we played against them. I'm sure it was a league game as well. I don't know when that sort of was in relation to the FA Cup game.
I'll have a sneaky look. I've got my big spreadsheet open so I can check.
I might be wrong, Mark, to be honest.
Well, I'll tell you, while I have a little look, I've got to say I've got something else open in front of me because I mentioned that question and answer that you did. Um, some of your answers are beautiful. I'm not going to embarrass you. Quite the opposite. They're brilliant. And I can see, like I said, I always liked watching you play. I liked your style of play. But I remember reading this as a guy. I didn't remember till I found it last week and thinking, I like this guy because your answers were essentially exactly what I'd have put. And also what I don't expect footballers to put. You know, footballers are all favourite musician, Diana Ross, you know, that sort of George Benson. I'm a teacher. I was explaining to some kids what George Benson is the other day. I don't know why. But I'm just saying, your schoolboy hero, Stuart Copeland, well played. Type of music, you got Chemical Brothers and Beck. Well done. Excellent work. Television, Alan Partridge. Fantastic. And then in dislikes, musical artists or bands, I love the ones you identify, Phil Collins, Elton John, Peter Andre, Boyzone, but the fact that you then put afterwards, you know the type. Well said. I'm just going to say, you were speaking for a generation there. Well played.
Well, funnily enough, when I was sort of thinking before, because I always remember when I was a kid, like, you know, obviously as a football mad, like, you know, we're sort of United fans, really, sort of big United fans in the family and that. And so we used to get Match and Shoot, like, you know, the magazines. And every time, I always remember reading these player profiles thinking, oh, God, you know, I might be able to do one of them one day if I sort of be a footballer, you know, when you're a kid and that. And I always remember that they used to ask for pre-match meal. What was your pre-match meal? And everyone used to say scampi and chips. And I always used to remember that, like, thinking, what's scampi like? You know what I mean? What is this scampi and chips that you got to have when you're a footballer? Like, you know, but yeah, the music one was funny, really, because you know, I'm sort of massively into my music, like I always have been, and you know, so I'm a big Super Furry Animals fan, and every you know, so when I was at Wrexham and I used to go and see the Super Furries play, you know, we used to go to Manchester, Liverpool, and wherever, really, like, you know, seen them a lot. And I'd always bump into some Wrexham fans because, you know, obviously a Welsh connection, and there was a lot of sort of, you know, Wrexham fans who were Super Furries fans as well. And you know, a lot of gigs that I've been to with SFA, like, you know, asking it, like, you know, and I've gone over and had a chat, like, you know, and it's been, and funnily enough, they hadn't toured for ages and they played the Albert Hall in about sort of 2016, I think it was, in Manchester. And same thing happened, like, you know, I got this chant coming over, like, it's getting, like, you know, and I had a chat with a few of the sort of Wrexham fans. So I always used to bump into Wrexham fans at sort of various gigs, mainly sort of Super Furry Animals gigs, though. So yeah, I'm a big sort of music fan, really, and yeah, all that. Yeah, footballers generally haven't got good taste in music, Matt, let me tell you that. It's not always the case.
Believe me, it hasn't changed. You hear the music coming out of the changing rooms. Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's a bit too dancey for my taste, I've got to say.
Yeah, you know, I can't remember if we had too much. I don't think we had too much music at that time in the changing rooms, like. But you know, I think, like, oh, God, if I was listening before the game, like, it just put me off and put me in a bad mood. You know what I mean? So, you know, I think that probably came in a little bit after my time, really. Just all that sort of, you know, the too much music, like, you know, coming out of the changing rooms.
No, good for you. That's what I say. I near the end of your time with us, we had a bit of a drama when Ian Rush, of course, comes to play for Wrexham as well. I mean, the excitement around the club was crazy. What was it like inside the club?
Yeah, I mean, you know, he's a big name, money, obviously. Yeah. You know, say being a United fan, like, it was someone that, you know. I mean, I used to go to Old Trafford throughout the 80s, like, you know, we had a season ticket. So I went as a kid for years and years, you know, to Old Trafford, and he never scored against United. He had this funny sort of record of not scoring against United, you know, when he was in his pomp, you know, for Liverpool. And then when I was at Blackburn, Kenny Dalglish became the manager. I'm thinking, bloody hell, like, you know, he's like our nemesis, like, you know, throughout the 80s. Yeah. And then Rushy came, you know, at that time, really. And yeah, it's sort of, as I say, it was towards the sort of end of my time there, really, like I think it was my fourth season before I went to York. And I just remember he was just a really good guy, you know, dead down to earth, you know, had time for everyone. There was no airs and graces with him, like, you know, he just, you know, he'd give off a little bits of advice here and there, like, you know, and yeah, I just, you know, my memories of him are all really sort of positive, like to laugh and a joke, like, you know, he'd definitely sort of have time for you if you wanted any sort of help, advice, just to sort of have a chat with him. And yeah, it was, okay, how many? I'm not sure how well it sort of worked out playing wise. Like, you know, how did it work out in the end? Like, you know, he seemed to, you know, someone of that stature just lifts the place anyway. But yeah, I'm not too sure. You know, from a playing perspective, like how it went. Did he score that many goals? Like that? I can't recall really.
Didn't score any.
Oh right.
Which was a shame. And I felt sorry for him because I think it was just his. I don't know, I mean, his pace had gone to an extent, I think, and he was a different type of player. And I think there was the hope that you put him in League One, he'll still score goals, but it didn't really work out that way. So I've just got his stats up now. So 20 starts, 7 sub, no goals.
Right.
And he did end up being pulled back into midfield more. You know, became a different type of player, if you like. But it was a shame because it wasn't one of those cases of, you know, like you say, a big man comes down and he's just seeing out his career. He was clearly
no,
but he was a different type of player by then.
Yeah, definitely. You know, and you know, if you look at it from his perspective as well, you know, what he's seen, done, been there, and you know what he's won and the goals he scored at the level he was at for the club he was at, then you know, with the best will in the world, you know, you tick up at Wrexham, you know, with a great group of lads, some good players, but they're not of the caliber that, you know, he's been playing with for so long. So you don't know how much, you know, internally that was sort of, you know, he never showed anything like that. There was definitely no sort of, you know, snobbery about him in terms of, you know, well, I've done this, I've done that. There was never any of that, like, which was same as Joey, really, like, you know, the player Joey's been and you know, the trophies he's won, you know, it was just so down to earth. There was never any sort of any airs and graces with either of them. I don't remember. Definitely Joey, anyway. So yeah, but you know, because we were a good, you know, footballing attacking team at that time. So you know, it does seem strange that he didn't really score, but that is solely not down to him, I'm sure. Like, you know, but yeah, just a really sort of interesting time, I suppose. Like, yeah.
I'm Aaron Hayden, and this is Dragonheart.
Well, that was part 1 of the Craig Skinner interview. Part 2 will be next week. We're now going to talk about the upcoming league game, which is a big one. I think now up to the end of the season, I think every point's going to count. Looking how tight the table is. We've got a really tough game in Yeovil, who was our first defeat at home this season, Bill. So yeah, it's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah, it was funny that we had a game with 10 men, and you know, it's going to be a tough one. I think to lose 2-0 at home this season too was frustrating, but we're a team that plays quite well away. Have we still got the best away form, or did we lose it after Notts County?
If we win on Saturday, we'll be equal with Chesterfield again.
Right. So, you know, either way, we're up there as one of the best away teams. So hopefully we can go there and do the business. I think our style does definitely suit being away a bit more. If Yeovil want to come and have a go at us, then we can sort of do that sitting. You know, and Mullins had a bit of a rest, so hopefully he's firing on all cylinders.
It's Yeovil are odd.
Yeah,
I don't mean that offensively. Draw your own conclusions about that. But they're peculiar in that when they played us, Chesterfield were top of the form table in our league, and we were second and third, Wrexham and Yeovil. Yeovil were in the middle of a big injury/COVID crisis. They couldn't name 5 subs against us, and yet they managed to win and continue that form, and they kept winning afterwards. And yet on Boxing Day, they were like, going into Boxing Day, they were unbeaten in 10 and won 8 of them. And they just got battered at home against Torquay, and they've lost every game since. Weird sort of up and down side. I mean, let's hope. I think maybe we played them at the wrong time at the racecourse. Although, as you rightly said, Bill, that red card to McAlinden really, I think, coloured the game. Hopefully now we're playing at the right time.
Yeah, that their form's been very up and down. The season, as you said, they've been a strange side. They've just lost on penalties to Needham Market. They then lost to Southend, lost to Bournemouth in the Cup, and then lost to Torquay twice on the bounce. So, yeah, it's a strange time to play him. Is there any players that really caught your eye on their side last time we played them, Mark?
The player who scored the second goal, Low Everton, was outstanding. Sort of playing off the front man, drifting about, popping up in unexpected places, willing to run at people down the channels. He scored a quite simple goal, but his movement and threat was extremely impressive, I thought. But I do want to go back to what Bill said, though, that red card in the 34th minute. We weren't playing all that well, but neither were they. And I feel if we kept 11 against 11, we may have ground out a win or at least drawn it. I don't think we'd have lost it. Remember that first goal by Staunton was a worldie.
Well, yeah, and, you know, every point's really counting at the moment. You know, we're in 8th with 39 points. It's really tight up that top 9, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah, and now's when we need to push on. You know, fame hurts, and here's where we start paying in sweat or paying in rich people's money, which will also do just fine. Hopefully we get those signings to boost us. We have been on a really good run, apart from that Notts County game, and again, early red cards conditioned it. I feel confident we're heading in the right direction. It'd be great if we can recruit a bit more, but we won't do before Yeovil, I wouldn't think. But we just need to show that we're maintaining that momentum. So I feel very positive about the situation we're in at the moment.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have a bit of fear factor for going to teams if we were to get another signing, even if they're not quite ready. Just that idea of going in and saying, "Oh, we've got X, Y, or Z player from League One or League Two," like we have been getting, can sometimes work. It can be quite intimidating, can it? It can work in your favour.
Well, it'll be interesting when we've been playing our cards very close to our chest, but we do have it confirmed that we're interested. We haven't made a bid, but we're interested in Verdane Oliver, who's a player that I know Dean Keats was interested in and looked brilliant against us when he was a York player. You know, quick attacking player who can cut in from the wings and score. And last season's the only time in his career he's really scored many goals, but he scored 17 goals in, was it League One? So, yeah, he would be the sort of signing, wouldn't he? And I'm not saying it has to be him. What I'm saying is I think we are looking at that level, the sort of players that you're right. We'll send out a message of, oh, look what they got alongside Paul Mullen now, apart from Kwame Thomas and Bonticelli and Dior Angus.
Also, there's some cracking players in this league I think we could sweep as well, which would be quite nice. But yeah, I'm also not 100%. I still think this team could go up without any signings, you know, as well. I don't think. I do think we need another midfielder. However, I do think this side has the depth and is good enough to go up through playoffs. And I think with 3 or 4, say 3 big signings, we could push for the title. But we do have to get into a big swing of results now, and it is starting to get quite hairy, isn't it, Bill?
Yeah, it's go time now, isn't it? You know, if they're going to win the league, they definitely need to every game's got to be sort of treated as a must-win game from now until the end of the season, or at least until the end of, when a points tally had been brought up. We can't afford to lose to anybody who's in that area. It's a lot of pressure, but a lot of teams do thrive under that sort of pressure, and the challenge of actually going for it might give some of the players a bit of a lift. Yeah, let's see.
Exactly.
Well, that's why we've bought players from a higher pedigree, is because hopefully they do rise to the occasion. That's why you pay big bucks for League Two and League One players.
Exactly. So we want to perform. We want players who relish that opportunity to be under pressure, because you don't succeed unless you're put into pressure situations, do you? So we need players who want that, don't we?
Yeah, 100%. So I think that's it for Dragonheart this week. Not much going on in the whole Wrexham universe yet. I'm sure there'll be something very soon. Yeah, it has been a good one. This is Dragonheart.
Hi guys, I'm Dominic Vose and this is Dragonheart.